Good.
I'm drunk. Apple got me drunk.
Oh, sorry, ladies. I had to. I'm already like, these words are moving on this card right now, so. So like, thank you ladies for coming in. I do appreciate your time, coming into the Black Room. So I thought we'll just have the viewers have a little bit of an understanding of you guys at a personal level. So we'll start off with name, age, and nationality.
My name's Talica. I'm 30 and I'm Fijian.
I'm Cribs. I'm 26 and I'm Samoan Māori.
Nice. So we have the nations on the table.
The nation's represented.
That's
everyone.
it.
Everyone in the comments.
That's it. So tell me a little bit about your Instagram and your podcast.
So we run two Brownish Girls, which started May 2019. We originally started it after being influenced by our friends at the Thingia Project, who held an event in April last year at Campbelltown Arts Centre, Solevu. And we just thought, there's so many Pacifica Australians that we wanted to have a platform where we could express, basically air our grievances about how it feels like we're between both worlds. So we're not exactly Australian and we're not exactly our respective Pacifica
Countries.
yeah. Because we were like born or raised here. And so it actually just started as basically a complaints channel for us to complain about our families and how they treated us, but then it backfired because then our families started listening
to it. My brother's like, yeah, this is a really good podcast. And I was like, oh my goodness.
That's real, hey?
I'm swearing a lot in this podcast. And because Solevu was a event, it was like to bring the Fijian community together and extended community. And it was like a workshop basically, where it had things where you could make Fijian food, and they had, what do you guys call it? Lovel?
Lovel.
Yeah, which is like a...
underground cooking, but we call it Lovel.
Yeah, so they had one there at Campbelltown Arts Centre. And so, yeah, we were making food, and they had like a weave making class.
Yeah.
And they had like ones about the tattooing as well. So there was like heaps of like really cool things that we could do. And for Talitha and I, we met in a very unconventional way online. I mean, I guess it's probably not unconventional now, but it was like 10 years ago.
Shout out tumblr.com.
Yeah, we met on Tumblr, which is,
Yeah.
what is it, like a photo sharing?
Yeah, it's like if for everyone who's probably really young now, so they don't understand Tumblr. Basically was just like a photo sharing blog, like an easy blog.
Yeah,
like
you
not as,
repost stuff. And
Yeah, it wasn't like how technical like WordPress and all those type of blogs were back in the day. But yeah, you repost stuff after you find people that you have common interests with. So then you like follow them, and that's how we met, because we thought we were unique, being like the only Pacific Islanders on Tumblr. And then she says she remembers me like, hey, that's like Islander hair, that girl's photo. Then I was like, I'm Fiji.
Yeah, because all I saw was her glasses. It was like a webcam photo. And all I saw was her glasses and her hair. And I remember it being like just big in Fiji. And I was like, that is Pacifica Islander hair. I'm going to follow that girl, because nothing on her Tumblr page would resemble a Pacific Islander, and neither did mine. And so, yeah, and then we just, I don't know how, but because there's not really like there wasn't really a messaging thing inside it.
They only started the messaging part on Tumblr like a few years ago, like 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And I think we just realized because we had similar music interests, and
we started following each other on Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, I think Twitter, then Facebook, and then
and then we met.
Then we met. We're like, like.
It was weird, but like...
It was like, yeah, because like I think, yeah, like once we met at, what was that concert that you were surprised I was at? What was the one with... Superfest.
Yeah.
Like the one that Ice Cube, and I was like charging my phone in All Phones Arena.
We were drunk
and she ran into me and like lost it. She's like, are you really stealing electricity from like All Phones? I'm like, yes.
Yeah. It was, yeah, and so...
This was before the phone bank times.
We met in such an unconventional way. So like us identifying as Pacific Islanders wasn't really a commonality that we used in our friendship, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, oh, we're friends because we're Pacific Islander. It was just like, it just naturally happened through our other interests. So me suggesting a Pacifica Islander related event was like new. So I actually, I think I told you, but like I hesitated sending it because I was like, oh, maybe she won't go. Maybe she might get offended that I'm like, are you just sending it to me because I'm Fijian? But I sent it to her, I was like, oh, like this looks really cool and I like this kind of stuff. If you're interested, you want to go. And she said, yeah. And then it was just a really good event. Like we didn't feel outcasted in any way.
Yeah.
They made us feel so welcome. And I thought we were going to be like shamed because like they were like, oh, we're going to make the palusami.
Yeah.
And so like they make it differently. Like I think us, like we like do it like a Hershey's Kiss. But like they do it like a parcel. And so I was like, okay, how does this work? And like I didn't feel ashamed to ask. So it was a very safe space. And then from there, I think, yeah, she told me a few weeks later that she wanted to start a podcast. And then just my personality, she's like the creative, like the thinker, and I'm like the putting things together. So when she said she wanted to do it, I was like, oh, I'll come over next weekend. We'll just talk shit out. And then, yeah, it was like 1 a.m. we recorded our first podcast on like her phone. And that's just kind of where it started. We had a lot of names that we thought about and then stuck on 2 brownish girls because we weren't really brown, we were like brownish. But yeah, like our friendship was so unconventional, and then it just again, like we didn't use our identity as a way of like connecting with each other. It just was one of the things about us, and then realizing that there were a lot of common things that we shared in regards to our relationships with our Pacifica community, that we were just like, yeah, we should talk about this.
You posted about having dinner with a friend of yours.
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, sorry. That was just on Sunday that just passed at Hawa in Granville. Shout out Hawa. But
Sponsor.
yeah, like we were literally just sitting there, my friend and I, and he had his dog. So his dog was getting a lot of attention because he has a really cute dog. So everyone was like, oh, can I speak to your dog and stuff like that. And so this lady came up, like another like person of color, and she was like, oh, like, can I speak to your dog? And he's like, sure. And then she starts speaking to his dog, like saying, hi doggy, blah, blah, blah. And then she looks at me and she's like, oh, like, you're very beautiful. And I was like, thank you. And she's like, are you mixed? And I said, no, I'm full Fijian. And she's like, no, you're not. You look half black and half white. And my friend, even he was just like, huh? Like we were just both like, thank you, okay, bye. And then she walked away, and it was just, I thought about it. Like my friend and I went home and we told my brother, and he was just like, okay, that's really rude. Like in my opinion, like if I was told that, I would punch someone. And I'm like, okay, calm down. But then I thought about like the next day, and I was like, I need to post something on our platform because I wonder how people deal with going through stuff like that. Because it's, to me, when people say that, and this is no hate on anyone who is mixed, but it's basically saying that we can't be deemed attractive unless we have like
White in us.
Yeah, like that's the vibe people go for. That's when they say that. It's like a backhanded compliment. That's my interpretation. And like a lot of our friends were like, a lot of our listeners were like, you know, oh, that's the same that has happened to me. Like friends like, oh, like one of our friends said, oh, someone told her that she was too pretty to be full Samoan. And like just stuff like that. And didn't know how to react like to that. I just said, oh, thanks, and just like continued my night and week being confused by it. But I think it really speaks volumes about the colorism, even in our, like, especially in Pacifica community. I feel there's a lot of colorism issues.
Yeah. What's your take on it?
We spoke about this in our podcast as well, just about colorism in general, because I think for us, we're quite fair-skinned. Yeah. And we have we have relatives that are very dark-skinned and very light-skinned. And just being in Australia, it's very, you know, everyone's going for that caramel cocoa butter complexion.
Yes.
You know, and it's so favoured now. Like, have you seen all those those Instagram influencers that are being called out because
They're blackfishing, aren't they?
yeah,
Like,
blackfishing. Yeah, so basically they're like, you see their face and they're like, get ready with me, and they're like real pale, and then at the end of it, it's like
They
a
use
real
our
dark
foundation. That's
skin.
why our foundation's always sold out.
Because they're using it
Because
all.
it's the
So I
influencers.
think it's quite toxic, and it's really toxic in the Pacifica community, and a lot of people don't realize it a lot, especially, you know, when we go out in the sun. Come back, they're like, oh, you're so black, you're so dark, like, and it's like frowned upon.
Right.
And so I think what I've realized about colorism anyway is just learning to appreciate your skin and realizing that your skin, the way it is how you should learn to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And the unlearning that we've had to do as well. It speaks volumes how much we think without knowing.
Yeah.
It's like the unintentional. Well, they have that science experiment or something at schools now. It's like I think something like unintentional bias or something. Like so you have like an iPad. Like kids will have an iPad each, and then the teachers will actually ask you. So what do you think is good or bad? Like a bad people.
Yeah.
And who do you associate being like a policeman, or who do you associate being like, you know, along those lines? And it's crazy because people are like, they don't realize they're unintentionally just.
Yeah, I think it's just what we see on TV as well. Like,
Yeah, it's very Eurocentric.
yeah, my niece, she's 4, and she looks, you know, like the Elsa and Frozen, whatever. She like looks to that more as a sign of beauty, and she doesn't realize that she can see herself in the mirror of like a Moana or like a lot of other characters, like ethnic Disney characters and whatever. But like she doesn't look to that. She doesn't realize that you can be beautiful without being a princess or beautiful without doing this. And so like, I'm like, she's 4 already, and she's already learning these like Eurocentric ideas. And so trying to already like unlearn that with her. But just seeing how like naturally these things that we watch throughout the beginning of our lives is so ingrained as we grow up.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
And then to have to unlearn is such an effort.
Yeah. Interviewing you guys is something I'm really excited about because it's something I personally like to talk about, you know, and I'm really proud of you guys putting out a content or a movement about this because like we were discussing prior to this interview, I think it's not something that a lot of people like to talk about. So I'm honoured and excited to actually put you guys on the table and interviewing you guys because I
Happy
love
to be
this
in the
stuff.
black room.
That's it. Thank you.
But it's true. It's really true. You know what though? A lot of these hard topics are so taboo in our and I'm gonna say the entire Pacifica community.
Yeah.
Because I mean we could really go back to us being humble people and stuff like that. But then if we really date back, that's from like missionaries, like telling us to be a certain way. But you know, a lot of
put clothes on.
telling us to put clothes on, hide our tattoos, so then they're not in history's books. Like, you know, I think from being so conditioned in that sense that we've forgotten all of the ideals that our ancestors had before that, and all the things that were so openly spoken about back then. Like even with tattooing, like that was originally done by women.
Like the Fijian women influenced like the tattooing in the South Pacific. That was what Solovu was teaching us like about. And even that I didn't know because I'm like, oh, what? Wait, what? My girls came through like.
Yeah, it's a movement basically about like celebrating Fijian tattooing and the women doing it. So yeah, it was run by all Fijian women. It was really cool, like really empowering to be there.
Because you think of it like, I think of like the Fiji Museum in Suva. That's all would be the British, like the colony history, because they would have destroyed all our like actual history, like the actual traditions we use. So we were only allowed to keep some. Yeah. Like we don't know the full extent because everything is from like their perspective. So
how they
they've whitewashed like all of that, you know.
No, I purely think that these conversations that we're having,
they need to be said.
They need to be said, and they need to be normalized in our community. Like I said, there's so many conversations that they don't want to speak about, but there's so many people in our community, they're like, we turned out fine. It's like, but did you though? Like, did you really?
Subconsciously.
Are you subconsciously like scared of your dad because of the hidings he gave you? Like, do you know what you know? So there's so much trauma that we carry that we don't realize that you know, and I'm not saying to blame parents for like hidings or whatever. I think there's a lot of generational trauma that has been passed on. And I think what we want to achieve in this podcast now wasn't what we thought at the beginning, but what we want to achieve now is helping to start these healthy conversations and break those generational traumas and cycles that are happening. Money, sex, body positivity, colorism, so many aspects that I think we thought we were going to run out of topics after like 5 episodes.
Then you like actually like you really think about like these things and like these subjects, and you realize the impact that it's had on you, that your like non-islander friends are like, okay, that's not a normal thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, it is. Like, I remember like just recently, like I read a Reddit post on like relationships advice, and then it was the Reddit page, am I the asshole page, that subreddit. And this mum was saying, was I too harsh on my daughter because her daughter didn't do the chores? And so the mum went into her room, like she didn't fold her clothes properly, so her mum threw all her clothes into the middle of the room, and the 16-year-old daughter told her that she was like a crazy bitch and that she stayed with her auntie. And like everyone was commenting saying, oh my gosh, that's horrible, like how can you be a mother like that? And to me I was just like, that's normal. And then I talked to like, you know, my Mediterranean friends, and they were like, okay, firstly, she called her mum a bitch. Like, is she still alive? That's normal. Like, I posted it on my Twitter.
What hospital is she at?
And all my, you know, ethnic friends were like, that's normalized now. Like, you know, that's the least of your problems. If your mum's going to throw, at least she's not hitting you with throwing a shoe at you or hitting you with a belt. Then you try and cut your dad's work belt, then you get in trouble for that. I don't know who did that.
I've done that before.
I don't know who did that.
I did it to save my brother.
She learned a lot.
Oh man, that's
Like things like that you don't realize until you're older. Like now we're just like, oh, that's not. Because then friends will be like, I never got hit. And then you're like, oh yeah, go on.
I think it can be celebrated as well. Like, I've seen hidings being celebrated as a way of connecting with other Pacific Islanders. And I think it can be funny to some extent, but then it's like also you were beat. Maybe because your parents couldn't communicate with you properly. Yeah. I don't know, but that's not a good thing. I mean, I'm speaking from a perspective that I wasn't hit as a child. So, yeah. I think sometimes, like, you know, when your parents are beating you, they're saying shit that it's like really sticks with you. And that's what I learned. My brother had received some very traumatizing things, and he's like, that stays with you. And I never want to say that to my son because he's got a little boy. So, yeah, those experiences, me being a fucking spectator, I just never want to see that again. So, yeah, everyone's got their own things.
But I'm sure everyone will comment all their thoughts on this conversation. I'm sure.
Yeah, because like
let's fight.
Like it doesn't, like if someone gets hit, it doesn't, like I'm just, like my mum told me to call docs or something when was it? I told her I was going to call docs when I was like 3 or something. Right. Because she chased me around a car park in Mitchinbury because I was being a brat. And then this lady tried to intervene and said, oh, you can't speak to your daughter like this. And my mum was like, come here, I'll send you to docs too, I'll hit you too. Just mind your own business, this is my child. Yeah. So to me, that's like, oh, it's normal because like, you know, it's just normalized to me. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, it's just like, like, I don't know if it'll ever change.
Yeah, that's
the thing. Like, I don't think because like so many people still, like, you still see videos on TikTok and that where people are beating their kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the generations to come will be very interesting to see. I think there's a lot of mixed
opinions about it.
Yeah. And people have had mixed experiences with getting beat. Like, are we raising the generation that hasn't been beat yet? I don't know.
Going back to your Instagram, I've noticed that you have a couple of people that you have put into your broadcast. There was one I've noticed with Hawa. Tell me a little bit about your conversation and how you got in contact with him.
I'll take it. Yeah. So I've followed Hal for a while. So his full name is Hal Lotukefu.
Yes.
And he is from Queanbeyan and he's full Tongan. And I found him because he does the Friday night Triple J hip hop show. And he's been doing it for about like almost 15 years now, a little bit over or under. And I've just seen him around. I would see him at festivals and I'm like, that's how, but I didn't know him at the time. And so I just like talked to my friend, I'm like, that's how there. And as we started the podcast, yeah, he followed us and he really liked what we did. Vice versa, we would just, connect, share and like and post and stuff like that. Because he is in the music industry and he had his own rap group back in the 90s here in Australia called Colorism. And they were really pinnacle to the Australian rap scene in the 90s and early 2000s. So he's really like well respected in that regard, and that's why he's still around. And in the last few years, I've seen him pop up even more because, with artists like 1-4 and HP Boys, following him on Instagram, he was connecting with all of these artists. And because he has such a history in the music industry, he wanted to connect with them and mentor them. And when there would be an event, that young kid that had been stabbed to death in Melbourne, he would speak up about these issues and he would post his thoughts. And all of the community that we're now a part of would be, thank you so much for speaking on that. Because we felt like he voiced the opinion and the concerns that we had. And from him being older than us, I think he's like in his early 40s, it was comforting because, in that older generation, there's a lot of people that have traditional thinking and things like that. And he really thinks outside the box. And that's personally what brought me to him, is that I felt like I saw a mentor in him, that he was really paving the way for people that think like us and want to have these hard conversations. And that's where it started. That it was from that conversation. It was from that event when I think his name's Solomone had passed away in Melbourne. That he brought up his thoughts, and when I had done a little post, I did like a little rant on Instagram, and he like shared it, and he was like, "This is really good, sis. Thank you so much." Blah blah blah. And I just said, "Look, I really want to get you on to the podcast for me and Talitha, because he's just speaking so much truth." And it was, just really reassuring, because obviously there's not a lot of people that think like, have the same mentality that we do. And so it was nice to see his thoughts and just have a really good conversation with him. It felt like we were talking to an uncle. But like an uncle that we liked. It's just really wholesome and, judge-free, and it was just a really good conversation.
And I think he credited it too because he had pretty progressive parents. And I think that, I found out like he had similar, like his parents had similar backgrounds, like academic backgrounds to like my parents. So I was like, oh, no wonder, like, because, I feel like having parents, like Islander parents that are in like that different, like that different type of mentality, like it's like you're going to have a different thinking in comparison to the traditional. And I think like, it's just noticing, that's like the biggest thing I think the podcast has let me notice, is that there's a lot of traditional stuff still.
And a lot of progressive, like on the other side. What was interesting though is when he said that he had progressive parents and that they let him do anything, he said that they didn't do the same for his sister who was older. And I was like, there is still a lot of traditional thinking that they didn't really let her go and do what she wanted to pursue or achieve and whatever. But yet it was like, different standards for him. And so, it was even talking about those types of conversations, so that, me as a future parent, I don't want to dictate how my son should live and how my daughter should live. They should both live equally and not have different, standards held above them.
Because you don't know until, like, I suppose you start talking to people in the community. Because I thought everyone was just like me. Like, I can do whatever I want since birth. I was told by like my World War II veteran grandfather that, women can do anything. You can be an astronaut, like when I was 8. So it's like my mentality. I'm like, everyone's a feminist. And then I went into high school. I was like, like where it's like some friends who didn't get in the same inheritance or something as their brother because they went to, like one friend, she went to uni and her grandparents were very disappointed that she went to university. She wasn't Pacifica, but just like a fact, like as being a woman, like, they said you should be concentrating on finishing school and like, having children. And then she's like, but I know that's not what I, like that mentality. I didn't know that still existed. Like stay in the kitchen. And I was like, what? What is going on here? So it's like, oh.
It's such a typical way to think for, especially as a female, you know, get married, have children. That's all you're born for, you know.
And it's not a bad, like, it's not a bad thing if girls like still want that. But a lot of us are like veering from like that ideal, like the society telling us, oh my gosh, my nails aren't done. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'll put them back down. But like a lot of them like don't have like that. Yeah, it's just like you don't realize like it's pretty lucky to be able to like have your own opinion and do what you want and not have that have that like, you know.
That's definitely shaped the way that I think though. When I lost my mum and when my dad wasn't around, I was quite young. So I didn't really have someone to tell me, like to condition me, you know. I didn't have someone to like whip me in shape or that's bad, that's good. You know, because my sister who was raising me, she was like 21 at the time, so she was trying to find her own shit. So yeah, me growing up, I was like, you know, not dabbling in bad stuff, but I was just like trying different things and talking to different people. And I truly think that that's the reason why the way I am in terms of my thinking is because I was so freely available to explore different ways of thinking. And I think the podcast, it helped me see that there's a lot of people that don't have that.
No.
And are very conditioned.
Still, like...
You know, very conditioned. And that's, again, there's no ill will towards that. It's just an observation that we've found and said, okay, we might be the like very small population.
Because it is like a safe space because we want to talk about everything, and we also want everyone else to be talking about everything and not just us from like the cis heteronormative like angle, like, you know, as like straight girls. It's like we want like everyone to be able to be comfortable because like a lot of everything's still so traditional, like, and also religion based. So like, no hate on religious people. My auntie's gonna say this, but it's just like we wanted to like speak freely and like not have any like of that judgment around.
It's been good though, speaking freely, because there are a lot of podcasts out right now by Pacifica People, and I think that's really great. A lot of them have podcasts directed towards, you know, like there's one for like missionaries I've seen. There's one for like, they're talking about their they're talking about their journey as like being missionaries and Pacific Islanders. Cool. There's one
that's commitment being a missionary. Hey, like
And there's ones just talking about other stuff, but they are again like very like Christian. So like I'm sure like their talks are probably like very G-rated. And that's cool again. There's just like...
Because we need that too. We need the people
we need the range.
To be represented. Because I never went to church. I never went to youth like majority of Pacific Islanders. Right. So I'm like the devil's like cabana girl basically. My auntie got angry when I wore my Slayer shirt to like lunch once on Sunday. She was just like... She's like, too many demon stuff in your room. Shout out Slayer.
All love here. So, what has been your successes within your platform?
I reckon the biggest one, which was just anniversary the other day, was when we had a live podcast recording at Campbelltown Arts Centre. So part like the Vingaya project again for Marama Levu. Was it Marama Levu? No, Marama Dinner. Isolai. Highlight, sorry.
Fijians, don't come for her.
Don't, please. He's our singer. My minimal, like, I know Fijian, but I just can't speak. I can understand it mostly fluently. Anyway, that's a side story that has nothing to do with it. But we had a live podcast recording, so it was really good. Some of our fans came, like our listeners. Fans. I feel weird calling them fans. Listeners. Yeah. So that was really good. And we were able to just speak about our experiences and like in an open forum, so people asked us questions live, which was very I think that's like one of the...
It was set in a little
Bure, like
vale.
Vale, be right.
Yeah, they call it a talking house, the Valeni Songo.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they built it. It was like an exhibition for Marama dinner, and they had different like setups and installations, and they had this big like fucking fale salmon inside the gallery, and so we had it in there. So it was like we all sat down on like cushions and shit, and we talked. It was really cool. For us, it felt very full circle because they were the ones that inspired us to do the podcast in the first place. And then a few months later, they were like, "We need you for like a live recording," and it's really cool. That's probably been our biggest achievement, and just collaborating with a lot of creatives like yourself, and just like so much of what's to come. It's really, I don't know, wholesome. Like we're just like, what is going on?
Was really good.
Yeah.
International Women's Day was earlier this year.
Yeah.
At Bankstown Arts Centre for We Are the Mainstream, and that's like a collective of like pod girls from Western Sydney. So that's pretty hectic. Like that was good.
Yeah, it was purely for women
Of colour.
women of color, and it was just it's like a conference, and they had like breakout sessions, and we were asked to speak on the breakout sessions. So we had like really good conversations with other creatives and other women in their industries. Like we met people that like they make art or they do like slam poetry. So it was just, we met a lot of connects from there.
It's been good to create like, it initially, as we said, started out as like a very like just self, like for us. But then now it's just become for everyone else, to be honest, like the whole community. It's more like what we can speak about to help the community. Yeah. That's what, I feel like our community needs a lot of like, not saying like we need a lot of help, but I feel like we could get help like here. Yeah. Especially here, like with the youth and everything, you know, like, so it's like good having like a platform where it's like they feel safe to talk to us. Yeah. Not that we're giving like really good advice, but just listening is like the main part.
Yeah.
Like just listening to people and like
just knowing that someone relates to them.
Like hearing their perspectives and everything. Yeah.
That's something that we really try to reinstate in our podcast, is that we're not, as much as we speak what other people are thinking, we're also not speaking on their behalf. Because you know, you could get someone's like, I don't think that way, and it's
that's
like,
cool because that's your opinion.
Yeah,
like you know, but we're speaking from. We always have the disclaimer, like, you know, this is our opinion. Please emphasize.
Yeah.
Please don't come for me.
Yeah. And because I'd like to say that we are very inclusive. We support like our LGBTQI plus community, and you know, we're aware of, you know, pronouns and things like that, and people's experiences, and we always make sure that we talk from our experience as like straight cisgender women, because you know there's so many types of dimensional experiences that people have that can just, it won't fit into this space that we create. But what we found is that everyone can take something away from what we talk about. And again, that's what we're talking about, you know, just having all those different spaces that cater to different experiences. You know, we're just catering for a different experience. Yeah.
Like, is your platform based on just females, or do you kind of like open that to just everyone, or?
I would like to think that it was initially, I think, based on us as women. Actually, I think it's more just being Pacifica Australian.
Okay.
Yeah, because like we'd never really, like when we spoke about our experiences, because like we're women, so we'd speak from like the girl perspective. Then we try and like we've been lucky to have like a few male like friends on like Pacifica males to like talk about, so we didn't want to give we didn't want to give their perspective because we're not men. So like, it's like fair for them.
Women-splaining.
Yeah, like women-splaining, like this happens, like but yeah, it was just initially, it was always been like just Pacifica Australians, and then even then it branched like to basically being Pacifica anywhere, like not in the mother countries. There's like a lot of people like that message us like from like the UK or like America, especially America. Actually, American.
Shout
Canada.
out Alaska.
Yeah. Wow. Shout out.
Yeah. So we had a few people message us as well. We did an Instagram stream once we got really drunk. Yeah. And yeah, because it was late-ish at night, we were getting people from America just like watching us.
When you're in your mother country, you're not the majority. So it's like trying to fit into all different.
Yeah. I think it's been, what do they call it? They call it the diaspora. So if you're, so if you're Samoan and you live in America, you're like part of the American Samoan diaspora, like that group of people that have that specific experience. And so we're just speaking from the experience of Pacifica Australian. And I say Pacifica because obviously Fiji and Samoan, we'd go on forever. And that's how we've connected those people, just having just a little touch of what we have gone through. And people in America as well, like they're realizing that as part of their diaspora, they're realizing that, okay, I've had similar upbringings, not being from the mother country directly, and seeing how we grow up from there.
Because we had like Heinz interview us for FTP, and he's from Vegas.
Yeah, we had the FT podcast, and we did a podcast recording with him. That was really cool. And just knowing that we've reached that far across the world, it's weird. Do you know we're ranked number 8 on society and culture in Fiji for podcasts?
Oh, wow.
Congratulations.
The Queen has returned. They're like, someone will comment, so she doesn't even know Fijian. That's what the comment will be on the video. She said the wrong word before.
That's an accomplishment, ladies.
I didn't even know that. What?
I mean, obviously it changes as we because we only upload episodes every month. So obviously the less listens it goes down. But we pretty much rank in the top 10. Oh my gosh. For 2-3 weeks after we
love
upload
to see it.
There you go. You guys heard it here. What is the next goal?
Workshops, I think, would be good. Or even lunches. Like brunches.
Yeah,
like
we wanted to connect with people more closely. There is something very exciting that we are working on. There's no lead time on it, but something that Talitha and I have been connecting with some other local creatives about putting something on. Again, there's no lead time, but just realizing that we wanted to create a space for us. What that space looks like, it's TBC, but that would be a really big achievement, and that would kind of tie into our goals in just trying to be more accessible and start these conversations and give people these tools to have these conversations. There's a lot of conversations that we probably don't know how to have, or we're not experienced in having, about body positivity or sexual health, things like that. And so we'd love to collaborate with some people
who are in the industries, because we can't be speaking on subjects that we don't know. Someone's like, that's the whole point of your podcast. That's what you're doing already.
But just connecting with those people and just allowing these safe spaces to be created to start these really healthy conversations. So we're just unnormalizing these stigmas that exist in our community, so that the next generation has these tools to, break them. I'm not saying be better or, never be like our parents. It's just to
because we can't change that. Yeah, that's the great thing Tasala taught us. It's we need to stop blaming our parents. And when I heard that, I'm like, I felt that. It's true, because my parents both died in 2017, so even if I wanted to blame them, I can't anymore. I have to go to Rookwood. Coping mechanisms. But it's a point, because I think so much tradition and still affects us, and it's good. We're not going against it, but I think hopefully the older generations are starting to understand that we're here to make the change, and we're not saying we're anti-tradition and all that stuff, but we need to make the change for the better for the younger generations to be able to, because even us, my auntie's a social worker, and it's they never talk about how high the youth suicide for Pacific Islander males are, and stuff like that.
Not to mention in sport.
Yeah, it's so they never talk about that, or they never what can we do to stop that from happening.
That just adds on to the societal pressure, the family pressure of trying to meet.
He's going to become a rugby player. He's going to play for
or we moved here for you to get a better education.
Like that guilt trip thing that I don't. Is it a guilt trip mentality?
It's definitely it's a guilt trip thing, and part of it is part of it is it's true. That's what they came here for, to do that. I think when the expectation comes on the child to fulfill that dream that you want for them can also be quite self-serving.
Because it is hard. Like I didn't feel good until I got into university, because I literally always think, and I still think, that, well, why did my grandparents immigrate here then? That's my mentality.
Yeah.
Like I said, why did they say, it took them 10 years to come here because of the White Australia policy. Like they would have been here straight after my dad was born in 1959. But because the government were like, ethnic.
No whites, no Islanders and Asians.
No Islanders and Asians, yes, like go. So like they would have been here, and that was like my grandpa being an accountant and my like nan being like a head nurse. They had proper careers, and they still took 10 years to come here. And then even then, when they got here, they only let my grandmother come through first, and then my grandpa had to wait. And so I think of like their sacrifice, like they gave up a really comfortable like lifestyle in Fiji. Like then it's like, well, then what am I doing? And then it's like my brother had to be like, we really can't compare ourselves to them, because it's just they would get upset at us for being upset that we're not doing enough here. Like I feel like a lot of that projection, but like because I'd be like, and even like if other cousins are making decisions, like I'd be like then why did our grandparents immigrate here if you're not doing like what you're meant to be doing? And then I think you just have to like, it's getting away from that. Because you have to.
It's a bit of both, because it's different when you have parents that are alive versus when parents are not around. Then you can start to easily deviate from whatever you were meant to do. But I think also understanding that you can go through that process to get to your purpose in life, sometimes it's not going to be the first thing. And that's what I realized, that sometimes parents are not about that. They're like, no, you have to go to uni. This is what it's going to take for you to get to what the dream is. But it's like, but what is the dream? What is the purpose?
And that's the thing, they didn't even tell me to go to uni. Just because I felt they went to uni, and then everyone in the family's been to uni, that I just felt like, and like I know so many people who didn't go to uni and have like 5 investment properties. So what's on that education? Why am I looking? What's on that? Scott Morrison, please explain to me.
But it's so true though. Like we're so limited to exceeding from the norms, especially within the island community. We can't go beyond that. We always have that one level, and that's it. You can't go over that. If you overgo that certain achievement, you're overlooked upon, You're like, oh, look at that person. They shouldn't be there. Or like, they just get hate.
Don't get me started on are you lost? Are you sure you're meant to be in this industry?
Right.
I get it a lot. I work in the real estate industry, not by choice. It just happened, and I'm still there. I don't want to talk about it. That's it. And I've been in the industry for a while now, and my own conditioned thinking of what I see in the real estate industry is just white corporate, I don't know, blazers and like
R.M. Williams and puffer vests.
Yeah, and just like buttoned up white t-shirts.
I'm not hating on the North Shore again, I promise.
Just like button up white t-shirts and
Ralph Lauren t-shirts.
That's what I see in that industry. And so when I come in there, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen anyone like me in this industry. So I feel out of place. I feel like, oh, no, I'm meant to be doing music. I'm meant to be doing sport, but I don't fit into those categories. And so when I am in this industry now, I start to second guess myself, or I start to feel very outcasted. Like when I would go to meet someone, for example, I'm thinking to myself, oh, they're not expecting a brown person. I sound white over the phone. White, aka professional. I sound white over the phone. So when I go to meet someone, I start to get anxiety and I feel very self-conscious. I would like tell them about something I'm wearing or where I am exactly, so that if I'm there, they're not going to go, oh, no, I'm not looking. I'm looking for this person. I'm like, but it's me. So I started to,
Where do you think that comes from?
That comes from what I think about what's in the industry. That I've never seen brown people in the real estate industry. I'm seeing a lot more now, but because I never saw it, like 8 years ago when I started, I've just always felt out of place. And that's obviously in Australia. I know there's heaps of like Pacific Islanders in real estate in New Zealand. But just being here, it's just not what I've seen. So they have like, you know, networking groups and things like that in this industry. I don't go because I just feel so out of place. And that they're going to be like, she must be lost.
But it's crazy, like, to think that, hey, like 'cause,
That's
you know,
my conditioned thinking.
like that's like the podcast like has realized we always thought we were similar, but we're so different.
Right.
Like really different. Because like I've never thought that, and I've worked like for a big four bank, and I've worked now for an international like finance company that will remain disclosed until. But like I've never thought that because I was like just raised to like you can do anything. Like you like not to me. My race is like to me. I don't like it doesn't affect me even if people think it like around me. I don't care because I'm here. There's a reason I'm here in this boardroom. There's a reason I'm here. I'm running this meeting. There's a reason like I'm telling people what they need to do or like what like
And like for me, I manage a jewelry store. So when a lot of customers ask for the manager, they look for the eldest lady.
See?
And then I walk out and they're like,
That's it.
"You're the manager?"
I hate that shit.
You know? So I understand. Yeah, it's something that's it's bizarre and it makes me feel uncomfortable and it takes me out of place when
because then you double guess yourself. I think in a way you're like, do I belong here?
Exactly.
And it's like, bitch, I do belong here.
Yeah.
Close up on this.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's true, like, because we're taught, hey, like we're taught, like at school too, like all the stereotypes about Pacific Islanders in school here is always that we're only good at sports. That's it. We're dumb. Like, you know, we're uneducated, like all that. Don't concentrate at school or anything. Like, so all that stereotypes. And I think it does affect the kids because the kids don't think that they, like, you know, I always have to have conversations with my younger cousins telling them, I'm like, who tells you this? Who tells you this narrative? Fight them. So maybe don't fight them because that's another stereotype we're going to go off. But like, just like, who tells you that you can't do this? Like, what's like, you know, and it just makes you upset because if you haven't come from that background where I've never been told that I can't do anything because of my race. But then
Totally do. Like, I love that experience. I wish I had that. That's what I want to grow up in and feeling that I can do anything and nothing is because of my race.
Or my gender.
Or
I was literally, as I said, my grandpa, he was great. He's like he died 2004 when I was in year 9. So it's like very, like he's still like, I still miss him. He's the only person like on my bedside table, like there's a photo of like framed or photos of us together and that because he was like my mentor basically because he taught me, like he did accounting, he did finance. So that's why I'm in finance and like stuff like that. Because he always told me like there was never an issue. So then when you come into the real world, you're like, wait, what? I'm like, I thought all your like granddads and dads are fine with you. Like, what? They told you to stay in the kitchen, huh? They don't make you tea when you go home from school? Okay. Like I didn't know. Like my friends were like, what world are you living in? Like, and even like at my dad's funeral at I did his eulogy and I said, oh, like dad was like a feminist and he was like big about LGBTIQ plus like rights and all the older relatives were like, oh my God, they groaned like in the church. My brother's like, they were like not happy when you said, as soon as I said feminist, like the men, the older Fijian men were just like, they just sighed. I was like,
well, and just learning to unlearn those things because we are conditioned to be in a box, just like Asian people are good at maths or, you know, all of these stereotypes that we hold not only on our community but on a lot of other communities.
Yeah, we do that,
you know, that we do without thinking. And that's exactly that type of thinking that starts to put us in our own boxes. And when we realize that we can break out of them and that we can be seen in different industries, that's when we start to value ourselves a lot more. From being in the podcast, we've connected with Pacific Islanders who are scientists, optometrists, in doing actual like sexual health. And she's Tongan something, just like real open about it. And we're actually going to have her on the podcast soon. And so just having all of these people, it reinstates like what we're about and what we're trying to celebrate is that we're not in a box. And if you're doing things that happen to be in the box, that's cool. But just know that there's
you can do more than the box.
So much more, like, you know, and I mean, there's so much more to unpack in that anyway, if there was like conversations with your parents, things like that. But we're just like doing it from a perspective that we are doing something that's outside the norm in so many aspects. So many.
That's it. And it all takes baby steps, and it's all just like listening to our conversation, you know. All it takes is just having just a conversation and sparking a thought, and then that will, you know, hopefully it will hit someone and be like, you know what, they're right. I think I'm just gonna do it, you know. So like, it's something interesting to talk about, and also with that, it's very deep. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. When it comes to the stereotype and where islanders are supposed to stay in, and they stay there, and that's it.
I think sometimes people are okay with being okay.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
That's okay.
That's
okay.
Okay, yeah. I think when people realise that there's a little bit more to life, and whether or not you stay in that comfort zone, that's cool. But when they start to see people outside of that norm, I think it can be quite inspiring. And that's what drew me to Hal, is because he was thinking outside that norm, and seeing all of these people. Again, like I think the podcast has brought Talica and I really close. We have connected on such a deeper level, and just understanding in so many aspects that, you know, it's not just about being Pacific Islander, it's us actually breaking outside these norms that we have, and all the learning and thinking and things like that, and just wanting to shift it, you know, for our community to come.
So what would you have done differently?
Start earlier, maybe, like straight after Solobu, and research what studio is available.
We had a lot of issues
because
with
like there's been a lot of issues with studios, and just like the quality of the original recordings. Like now we're sweet because we record at Bella Vista Hotel, so they're really great. They have a studio there.
Honestly, I think the way that we handled it, the way that
Pretty
we
alright,
rolled it out, I think we've been quite conscious, and we've put a lot of thought into our episodes, and we've tried to be very inclusive in the content that we bring. So I think as much as, like, you know, we can talk about what we would have done better, what we could have taken back, I'd like to say that we're kind of very forward thinking, so we just take whatever mistakes we did have and just say, okay, well, that's all right.
I think we've learned from them, like when people have sent their reviews, like if they're negative. Not if they're negative, it's their opinion. So I can't really say it's negative. Like maybe it's negative to me because I'm like find everything negative.
It's a differing opinion.
Different.
Yeah.
But I think it's been good, like being able to understand like different perspectives that we wouldn't have originally thought of. But it was because of our listeners. They're like, hey, like, okay, you said this, but like it's good. I think being held accountable, because we're adults too. Like we should be held accountable. If we say anything problematic.
I'd like to say that it's quite an open space for us as well, that people can feel like they want to bring up something if they're like, well, that was a bit touchy, or that was a bit too much. That we're all able to kind of openly have that conversation with that person. And, you know, whether we agree or disagree, that's, as long as we've just had it in an open dialogue, then I think we're sweet. But I mean, I don't know, we're perfect. No, I'm kidding. But it was good. You know, I wouldn't take anything back. I wouldn't take anything back the way that we haven't really done anything bad anyway. Like, we haven't gone viral. But
Oh no, that would be awful actually.
yeah,
That would be scary.
because then we'll get haters.
How can the viewers find you on their social media?
Yes, it is at 2 Brownish Girls on Instagram, and that's like at number 2 BRONISHGIRLS. Our own separate ones are listed in the bio, so you'll see it. We also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/2 Brownish Girls, and you can find us on pretty much every streaming.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wherever you find podcasts, listen to
every
podcasts.
streaming.
They're on there. It's the Jack Daniels talking.
The Jackie D's.
But thank you, ladies.
Thank you for having us on YouTube.
Pleasure
Thanks
is
for
mine.
making me drunk.
Please turn the comments off. Please. I'm only human.
Don't come for me.
That's it.
But thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. This was fun.
This was like,
Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. Also, oh no. Please hit like and subscribe. Also leave a comment below. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and also the 2 Brownish Girls.